the Daily Catch, this is the Catch Up, and I'm Walter Mullin. Today we're discussing a story that's about much more than putting a farm up for sale. It's about a lifetime of hard work, a family that has been part of Hudson Valley agriculture for generations, and the difficult decisions that come with thinking about retirement. After decades of farming, Ken Migliorelli has put his 210-acre orchard in Red Hook back on the market. But for him, finding the right buyer is about far more than getting the best price. As our story in the Daily Catch this week makes clear, Ken is hoping to pass on not just an orchard, but a legacy. His story touches on the futures of family farming, the challenges of agriculture today, and what it means to be a steward of the land. We're delighted to have Ken with us today to talk about his decision, his remarkable career, and what he hopes comes next for one of the Hudson Valley's best-known farms. It's the week of July 6th. Ken, welcome to the Catch-Up.
Oh, thank you. Welcome to be here.
Ken, you spent virtually your entire life farming. When did you first begin thinking that it might be time now to start slowing down?
Probably 3 to 4 years ago, in my early to mid 60s.
So in our story, you said, quote, mentally, I'm just worn out. And that was a very honest statement that I think a lot of people can probably relate to. What's changed for you over the years that led you to make that remark?
Well, I've been farming for over 50 years and doing farmers markets in New York City for 45. When my dad approached his 60s, I worked more hours, took on more responsibility, and I took the load off him. And he could retire nicely and without a lot of headaches because I took over those responsibilities and hours. I don't have that luxury. I'm going to be 67 this year, and all the plethora of potential liabilities on a daily and weekly basis just wears on you.
Sure.
It's trucks going to the city, it's coolies breaking down when it's 95 degrees out, it's insects, it's disease, it's endless mentally, not physically, because thank God I'm in really good shape, but I'm just a little worn out in that respect.
So during the peak season, which I imagine is right now, give us an idea of what your schedule is like. How many days a week do you work and how many hours a day do you work?
It's probably somewhere in the beginning to mid-April. It's 7 days flat out, almost to Thanksgiving. And when I say 7 days, I'm up usually anywhere from 4 to 5 o'clock. My crew starts at 6. This is the production crew. My drivers leave at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning for city bound. And then I'm usually, the crew works till 7. And even on the days they're off, they work a half a day on Saturday and I have off on Sunday. It's actually a nice time for me to catch up on a lot of little things where I don't have the phone ringing. But I would say for me, it's probably around 100 plus hours a week.
That's extraordinary. And we should make sure listeners also know that you've recently joined the Red Hook Board of Supervisors. So you have that responsibility on top of your farming job.
Right. And I was hoping to do that. I didn't want to enter into politics till I was in a semi-retirement mode. But with the climate that's transpired in Red Hook in the last year or so, I was kind of forced into it in some ways to start earlier and I don't want to get into the details of that. I'm sure you know what's going on in Red Hook.
Sure. We've talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
So Ken, this is the second time that you've listed the orchard for sale. What made you decide that now was the right time to put it back on the market?
Some potential buyers I had the last few years, they look promising and would be a good fit. And they also were not only interested in the orchard, they were interested in the entire operation. So the fruits, the vegetables, and the markets and the wholesale accounts. So I was in conversations with them, and one, we couldn't agree on terms and my responsibility, and the other I thought would be a great fit. They were just dragging their feet. So, and I let that go for like a year or so, and then I decided that I needed to move on from them.
And then Previously, wasn't there one buyer who wanted to convert the orchard to cannabis production?
Yeah.
And, and what was your reaction to that possibility?
Well, I was in contract and we were a week away from closing. And as I said in the article, driving by that orchard and having it, the cannabis would not have, would have ended the orchard as it is. And I just couldn't see that happening. As I stated, that orchard, because of its hills and its air drainage, we have a crop most years when a lot of farms don't have a crop because of freezes. So to me, it's more valuable for food stuff rather than cannabis. And I walked away from that closing.
Yeah. So you said you're looking to find, quote, the right buyer, not necessarily the highest bidder. In your mind, Ken, what does the right buyer look like?
Well, somebody that would care for the orchard the way I've cared for it for almost 25 years and have a market for, have a plan for the crop. I have some very good wholesale accounts and markets, and it doesn't have to be marketed that way. I mean, it could be stores, could be involved. It would be great for a destination. The old barn is a beautiful setting, and it could be turned into a pick your own or a venue place to have up on the hills. I mean, there's a lot of potential that that could continue the orchard the way it is.
Will you be selling the Migliorelli Farms name with the land? Because that's a very popular name. It's a very popular brand. And the equity in the Migliorelli Farms brand is sizable.
That would have to be discussed. The previous potential buyer who wanted to purchase the entire operation did want to keep the name because they did want to keep the markets in the city. And because we've been down there so long, they wanted to continue that name recognition.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about the markets and farm stands just for a moment, Ken. You've got three local farm stands here in the area. You're in Rhinebeck, Red Hook, and Mount Tremper. And you've got the Rhinebeck Farmers Market in Rhinebeck. And then you go down to the city, as you mentioned. You were one of the pioneers at the Green Market in Union Square. What's going to happen to those retail operations with this transition?
That would be depend on the potential buyer. If they want to have the markets, maybe they don't need to go into the city. Maybe they want to just stay local. The Kingston and Rhinebeck market, the farm stands. Currently, uh, my daughter Carly took over financial responsibility in January 1st of 2022. So she actually became a wholesale account for me. And knowing that if once I sell that, whoever purchased the farm would have would continue selling to Carly, and they could also continue selling to my wholesale accounts, or like we could structure it any way they would like. It's pretty flexible in that respect.
There's going to be a lot of unhappy shoppers if you pull out of the farmers markets in New York City and Red Hook and Rhinebeck and Kingston. There's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
I'm sure, but there's always people that'll step in and step up to the plate. Competition's out there, so that'll give an opportunity for other operations, hopefully.
Sure. So you talked about the topography of this orchard, Ken, and that's what makes it a special place. I talk a bit more about that because you have had good years and bad years. Like any farmer, you go up and down. But why is this particular a piece of land? Why are these 210 acres so good to grow fruit?
Again, I've mentioned this, but I'll reiterate the elevation of the hills of that orchard. What most farmers call is good air drainage. So the night that it gets cold, air keeps settling to the lowest point, keeps settling, and you get an inversion along the hills. And whenever air settles, it's going to be displaced and pull in some warmer air. And sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 degrees warmer on the hills, and that's enough to save a crop.
Sure.
Oh, in the 25 years, we've had probably half a dozen freeze events where my neighbors picked hardly anything, and I picked 80% or better. And last year showed that in 2025. And then this year also, we had another weather event. So to me, it makes it valuable. And as I mentioned, Cornell did a study on grape production, and that farm would be very conducive for a vineyard.
Sure. Interesting. So speaking of these weather events, farming seems to be getting more challenging every year with weather extremes, labor problems, rising costs, and unpredictable markets. What do you think has changed the most in the 50 years that you've been doing this? What's the biggest difference between 2026 and when you first started doing this in 1976?
Oh, I guess labor would be up on top of the list, and the cost of labor. We 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we entered into a time and a half. Farms were required to pay time and a half, and that puts a big strain on the bottom line. This year, January 1st, New York State, if you have 10 or more employees, you have to provide a retirement plan. So that puts another strain. I have 40 plus people on the payroll currently. So these costs, and you want to have an incredible, highly skilled workforce, which I'm very fortunate. But to keep that workforce, you have to be competitive with the pay, and so they don't move on.
Sure, makes sense. You said at the top of the show, Ken, you talked about taking over the business from your father when he wanted to retire, but your children are not interested in picking up the production side of the business, and that's why you're putting the orchard on the market. Was that difficult to accept that your children want to go a different way and take a different path?
Somewhat, but it's understandable. And I know some farms across the river, and some farmers actually wanted their children to seek other streams of income and occupations because of how hard and how many hours go into being successful. And I've talked to other farmers who they do have their progeny and are starting to be in a transition, and there's a lot of issues that go along with that. A lot of arguments and different ways. So there's a whole nother series of stresses that come with having your children take over. So I'm actually resided to the fact that I've made my mark in this world, and I'm pretty happy with what I've done. I've done more than my expectations took me, so I'm ready to go, move on.
Good, good. So speaking of farms in the area, you've been an advocate for preserving farmland in the Hudson Valley. Are you optimistic about the future of farming here, or do you worry about where things are headed?
Yeah, I'm concerned. What's going to keep the smaller growers, and I still consider myself a small grower as opposed to what I've seen. I've been to California and visited 20,000 acre vegetable operations, and they were still family run. But hopefully the clientele is willing to pay more for local product as opposed to the big box stores, because we're in competition. Not everybody could shop at some of our stands, and I understand that. But the people that do understand where their dollars are going, that they are supporting open space and local farms, and hopefully that can continue and keep farms profitable, because AI is going to be, in the coming decades, is going to be crucial, is going to be the next big thing for agriculture. And the big farms are going to do well with the AI, and that's going to bring the next cost of production down as far as labor and so forth.
Say more about that, Ken. How are farms using AI right now? Do you use it in your operation today?
No, not in the sense of, I've been on fruit tours around the world. And in Bolzano, Italy, I was on a fruit tour with the IFTA, International Fruit Tree Association. And I saw 2, 3 prototypes of apple harvesting equipment. And I know in California, they're starting to do a lot of engineering with strawberry harvesting. And you're going to see a lot of robotics enter into agriculture in the coming decades. And operations like myself and a lot of small farms cannot afford, to buy that equipment. So it's going to be larger farms that get to have that opportunity.
So you're saying the robotic pickers would replace the human pickers you have now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
It's
Never thought about.
coming. I seen it. It's how the crop is grown, and it's exciting that because in coming decades, the labor is going to keep declining. So AI robotics is going to be the next big thing.
That's a very good transition to my next question, Ken. You mentioned the next owner of your land. He or she could expand the orchard. They could create a pick your own operation, open a farm market or event space, or even grow grapes. If everything goes exactly as you hope, what would this property look like 10 years from now?
Oh, I could see it happen. Just being a well attended venue where, just like Rose Hill and Meat Orchard has their pick your own. Rose Hill has their pick your own and an event place. I see that happening to that operation, and let Red Hook be known as an agricultural community and a place to, so the competition or the added venue wouldn't hurt the area, it would help the area. When you go down on Route 17 in New Jersey and you want to buy a car, there's 20 dealerships in a row. Well, let Red Hook be that kind of area that people come from the city and want have the opportunity to go to many different places.
Sure. That's a great way to think about it. So, Ken, before we close, I just have two final questions. First question, what advice would you give a young person today who is thinking of becoming a farmer?
Plan on putting a lot of hours in. I mean, to be successful, you can't count your hours. It's not a 40-hour week job, and the days go by quickly. So when I used to actually do the markets personally in the city and then work on the farm the other 4 days, I was putting in 115, 120 hours a week, and I went through it without even thinking about it. So the hours are a big thing, and you need to be sharp business wise. You need to watch your costs, and really, it's a tight margin. And to stay profitable, you need to watch all your costs.
Good. So, one final question, Ken, and then we'll let you go. What would you like people in this community to understand about local farming that they may not appreciate when they stop by your farm stand or the farmer's market? What's one thing you'd like them to understand?
Well, the amount of effort that it goes into to get that product on the shelf. It's an enormous amount of hours and expense to get that product on the shelf.
Understood. Ken, thank you so much for your time today and best of luck with the sale. We look forward to watching who the next owner is going to be.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
And that concludes the catch up. Thanks to Maddie Rosenberg, Jen Hammoud, and Esther Martell at our partner Radio Free Rhinecliff for their help in producing this episode. We'll see you next time.